We're going to invite our colleagues who are going to transform the stage a little bit so we can get more panelists here. I feel like I'm in a garden right now. Everything is nice and green. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And we are going to continue with a panel discussion. And we're going to invite the speakers on this stage because Anton will be moderating. Rob will continue participating in this next panel discussion. And I would like to invite on the stage our next participant. He's an experienced leader of industrial research that has led teams to discover and capitalize on new materials, processes, and programs that deliver commercial success. He himself, by the way, is an inventor of 20 patents. He's the Associate Director of R&D at Sherwin-Williams. Let's welcome on the stage with a round of applause, Mark Schubert. Mark, welcome. Let's welcome Mark on the stage. Hello, Mark. Nice to see you. Please join our company right here. Next up, well, this is an inspiring story. This next person has gone through resilience and reinvention. Once a tireless entrepreneur, faced the challenges of brain tumor. That was his turning point in life. Afterwards, he crisscrossed more than 100 countries in the world, encountering a diverse array of individuals, from visionary entrepreneurs to wise healers. Right now, he serves as a connector, as a mentor, as a business angel. Ladies and gentlemen, with a loud round of applause, let's welcome on the stage Marcel Gasse. Marcel, welcome. Amazing to see you, Marcel. Welcome. And last but not least, she is a social entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a public speaker, activist, medical doctorate and PhD candidate. She is the best-selling children's book author. She has been titled as the Woman of the Decade by Women Economic Forum, and amongst other honors, of course. She has also, fun fact, served for the Luxembourg Army, and she is the former Princess of Luxembourg. Help me welcome on the stage Tessy, Antony de Nassau. Welcome. Tessy, welcome, welcome, welcome. This seat is yours. Let's go right into the discussion.
Hey Tessy, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again.
So, now it's time for a panel. Time to engage people with very different experiences in their lives, coming from across the globe. We have Europe, we have US, we have UK. So we can bring in the perspectives and also discuss more inclusively on what was just mentioned by Rob. And I would like to start with the question why each one of you thinks that this topic is important. Why subject about the importance of internal and external balance and mindfulness in this high-pressure, high-performance environment is important. How to avoid mental traps, and why it is so vital to bring this to the front of the discussion list. Ladies first.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for the question. So I would like to start with a question to all of you. Who here has experienced some micro burnouts up to really serious burnout? So I had a huge burnout 10 years ago. I couldn't walk, speak, eat. Needed to take medication to work because I had still a very public profile. I have 4 kids, and I was running some companies. But there was just no way that I could not function. So prioritizing your mental health is a competitive advantage when you're working in any kind of the industry. Because if you work, everything else works. If you don't function just in the minus complexities of your being, your work will be affected by it. And as such, that topic is really important to me, not just as a mother to teach my children to do better and learn better about the signs of your body telling you what is good for you and what is not, but also how this drive inside you can really create some incredible outcomes for you once you start really living your true self. For me, since my burnout, I always call it day zero when it happened. I remember when it happened. I was in a meeting with the Rockefeller Foundation, and all of a sudden I have this heat wave coming up in my body. And I felt so scared and lonely, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. I went to the bathroom, put my legs up on the toilet, and I remember feeling I will have a heart attack. What is going on? I'm so young, and all of that. Not realizing that my body was telling me, this is day zero of your new life, and you're going to listen.
Thanks so much, Tessy, for sharing this. Marcel, you had also an extreme experience. Would you like to bring something to the context?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks a lot for organizing this. I would say, yeah, we have the greatest piece of technology, which is our spacesuit or body intelligence. And as we just heard from Tessy, I mean, I feel the greatest challenge at the moment is that we are lost in communication. And it's happening right here, from the heart to the mind. And then, of course, from inside to outside, from internal world to external world, how we engage with shareholders if I raise money for my ventures, how I hire talent, how I engage with my customers. So I believe if we don't, as founders or entrepreneurs, investors, if we are not able to understand how we function, we are not able to exist in the external world, because the only guarantee we have is that the world is speeding up. The change is speeding up, and I believe also a lot of people will go or are already completely lost because the world is so much different than 5 years ago. So I would wish that more people can really go back to themselves and rediscover who they truly are, regardless of I had a brain tumor, people have burnout, depression, suicide. It doesn't really matter what is the trigger moment in your life to kind of realize that there is something more inside to discover, and you become more effective also in business, in your relationship.
Yeah, and if you don't observe it within yourself, those changes and the signals, it is going to catch you up in one way or another eventually.
Again.
So for all the high performers that this audience, well, with this type of people, this audience is really saturated. We're talking about innovators here. It's a very important message to take away. Mark, what is on which levels does this subject resonate with you?
Yep. When I first heard that Anton had this subject on the agenda, I was very glad to see it. I was impressed that we're actually addressing this topic, because you're like you just said, you're pulling in so many high performers. We're all susceptible to this level of burnout, which I observed myself when I worked for a large company, and two of us left to do our own startup, and I saw that the pressure of that changed my partner, and his level of self-awareness, because of the pressure and stress that he was under, just went down to zero. And I saw this person become a different person because of that. He was a gentle, kind, and collaborative person. And towards the end of our startup, which ended up not starting up, he was not the person that I knew for many years prior to that. So it's definitely an extremely important topic, because when you lose that, your level of performance then must just plummet, right? And I think Rob hit that hard. That's why it's so important. That, yeah, it's paradoxically you take care of this, and then the other things take care of themselves, because then you're really performing to your higher level that you know in your heart you can do, but you're not, because you're stuck in this bottom of no self-awareness.
Thanks so much, Mark, for your thoughts. Rob, would you like to reflect on something you just heard?
Yeah. Tessy is awesome. What you were saying, you use the expression competitive advantage. Absolutely. If people think that, like, I've worked in with hundreds of millions of assets in athletes, and they have doctors and everything. And the most important thing that I've seen with the players is that they're okay inside, and they're usually not. I've seen players in a corner, famous players in corners of my gym, hidden, crying, sobbing. You don't see it, you don't hear about it. I had a player, I was working with him, he just broke down crying. I said, do you want to talk about it? No. Do you want to continue? Yes. So we did the whole session with him, like massively depressed. So totally agree. It's retarded not to think it's a competitive advantage. Marcel, awesome. What you were saying with this spinning out, the disconnect with the internet is speeding up, where people are looking for connection in a device and they're disconnecting, compounding, and you see it with all the charts. 1971, there's a site. What happened in 1971 when America came off the gold standard and they started debasing the currency and manipulating the money? That disconnect changed everything. All our economy and money was disconnected from reality, and you see mental health going crazy since then. That externally was a huge disconnect. The money is broken, but we also have technology now that connects us. Ironically, we're more and more disconnected. So Marcel and Mark, you're saying it changes people. Yeah, this is the most valuable thing someone can spend their time on doing. And in terms of achievement, ironically, the more effortless it comes from connection within. The more you connect within, the more you'll pull in and you'll achieve. It doesn't make sense to the logical mind, but the more you de-engineer your space garbage, from the tech thing, the internal frames that are glitchy, the more you will achieve, ironically, as everything is in life. It's counterintuitive.
Thanks so much, Rob. There was a question, Mark, you addressed when we were preparing for the panel. I wanted to bring it in today. And to ask Rob again, what signs about yourself should a person pay attention to know when they need to change their approach to avoid damaging themselves and others?
Was that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, what signs?
Yeah.
You're drinking all the time. You're on your iPad. You're completely disconnected. Your mind's worrying. You're stressed. Everyone knows. Some people are in denial and they'll say, "Oh, I'm fine," which is a sign that you don't see yourself. It's denial. But if you're not sleeping, you can't listen to someone and look them in the eyes and connect, you're starting to disconnect. Just keep it simple. And most people are completely disconnected, which is why everyone's connecting over there. They're desperate for real connection. So,
What I'm hearing you say is, I'm sorry to...
Sure, go ahead.
Is that
please feel free to jump in if you'd like.
These screens are the counterfeit.
Raise a question.
Yeah.
Right. And when you take in the counterfeit, you're not feeding what you really need.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
Counterfeit, like that. Yeah.
I think there's as a mother of 18, 17, 16, and the 3-year-old, but he is still not in that category, I see kind of like a bittersweet situation with these devices, because I can see how the disconnect happens, absolutely, and when I take the devices away for like a family thing, they have kind of like withdrawal symptoms like a drug addict.
Yep.
Lying, screaming, this can go to all areas depending on how long they have been on it and how much they're inside of the game or whatever. But on the other side, I see them as well, use apps like Mindspace and others to really work on themselves and connect in ways that works well for them, but that I use as well. So I think it is how we use them, how often, and for what we use them. That is the educational part as a mom, but also as a person for myself, where I need to think, okay, what will that serve me, that exercise, that we're doing more the exercise of why am I using that now instead of this instead of just doing it and becoming then fueled into the dumb scrolling, as they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
I would maybe, when I see the title, Deep Tech Your Mind, I would say Deep Tech Your Body, because I learned from my spiritual teacher, many people are not really physically in their body. We are not really physically even present on this conference. The mind is all over, and to understand how we humans are still very primitive beings. And if I would be tech entrepreneur, it's worth to invest a few days of my life to understand how my spacesuit actually functions. And it's very primitive because the body has needs where the mind has a lot of wants. The wants are very infinite. I want this, I want recognition, I want success. But the body needs are very basic. It's warm, cold, food, air, water. And I was in the US last week, and the startup can really measure happiness. Because I kind of judge people only by happiness. No matter if you're rich or poor, successful or not, if you're unhappy, I would say you failed. If you're happy, I would say you're successful. So happiness in that startup was measured with neurotransmitters. For example, testosterone was one. So sex as a reward is one of our very primitive body needs. So I think that's very fascinating, and for me kind of a game changer how the whole universe works. And one other friend even said, we are AI. When you think about it, it's very fascinating thought, because we are water and minerals, which is a semiconductor. And we have 6 senses to analyze our environment, which thought is only one. So thought really helps us to process our environment. For me, very fascinating. In retrospect of my entrepreneurial career, I would have wished to have this knowledge 10 years ago, because it would have helped me to engage with investors, with my talent I hired the wrong way, where today would be much more easy.
I have what I can add to what you just said with the deep tech, well, from the deep tech end to your mind, talking about the burnout I mentioned before, maybe something that could be helpful for some of you who are struggling with anxiety. And when you're living in and working in a very high-performance environment, anxiety is kind of like second nature, because you have deadlines. You don't know if the product that is in deep tech, often a market-push product, is something that comes out of the lab and later will actually be successful, will be having a space in the market, and so on. And for me, there was a device that called Muse Headband. The moment I realized, I used it because I didn't want to go on pills. When you have severe depression, some people need to take the pills to just get a baseline to start working from. I was not that far yet, thank God, but I chose the route of kind of like finding out myself how to deal with that extreme anxiety, which manifested with shaking legs and all kinds of other things. And the Muse headband, which was extraordinary, going to what you said, when I put it on, it took a little bit of practice to get to know it and how it works. It is kind of like a direct neurological feedback that gives you kind of like birds when you're in an alpha state, and the background noise gets windier or more water when you are not. And I realized that when my anxiety was at the peak, I heard birds. So I was like, okay, this is weird. So I realized that my head was so confused what actually calmness feels, that it confused it with stress. And the moment that realization happened because of the Muse headband, I was 70% better. I could really work on that. And then everything else, my healing journey was quite fast because I had that final connection back of my body and my brain.
But the societal pressure, the venture capital grind environment, the capitalism itself, and especially blended with deep tech, where you have those delayed rewards, and you are at the same time seeing different other industries which have much faster rewards. Like 6 months, 12 months. In deep tech, it's a couple of years, not less than 3, until you prototype, until you get it somewhere, etc. You need to be really self-aware to balance this achievement versus happiness and address this kind of question. I would like to raise a question from you as experts and as entrepreneurs, investors, industry players. What would be some takeaways? What would be takeaways you'd invite people to take into consideration, considering also specifically the innovation topic? I understand that we're walking around here very closely, but as some takeaways for people, you know, just calm the fuck down. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I have a good one. I always feel like people are not in peace. It's always also building a company, it feels like a fight against time, competitors, capitalism, blah, blah. I had a case myself, an investor screwed up one of our ventures, and actually it was the best who could happen. So I would say making peace, also in healing, I had to make peace that the cancer won't kill me because it doesn't make sense. In my opinion, it didn't make sense. And when we are in a peaceful environment, also peace would mean in an entrepreneurial view, most business fail. Most investors will lose their money, but that's why they're investors. They're risk takers. So I would say making peace, and for me, again, happiness would be, we should collectively go for happiness. What makes my employees happy? What makes my shareholder happy? What makes myself happy? But always it starts with ourselves. I can't make others happy if I'm a completely wreck inside out. So quite simple.
It's about communication, and also not just with yourself, but with the team. Because if you don't have it, if you're alone, this kind of weirdo that is about self-balance, then you're still being dragged into this whole massacre of thoughts. What is your
Yeah, I would Marcel's point of, I call it physical intelligence. It's the most important thing. Mental intelligence is used. We use it. We use our minds. But it's physical intelligence we have to look after. So you have to be getting the essentials right for the body. So sleep, eating food, real food, not junk food, moving every day, and having quiet time. So I worked with a guy, Paul Checky, in San Diego. He was my teacher. He said you visit the 4 doctors every day. So doctor sleep, doctor diet, doctor happiness, and doctor quiet. Just they're sort of things that your body needs. I just say get those simple things right, and then it comes down to perspective. But if you're not doing those simple things right, is sometimes your mind, you're just too much up there, and you've got to come back down into your physical intelligence.
I'd like to build on the Dr. Quiet concept, because I've seen that. I struggle with this myself, the death by distractions. And I really like the book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, and how we have these 2 systems in our brain, the one that responds to the fight or flight, and then we have the executive functioning, which we all need in this room to be operating at top, performance level to execute what we really want to execute. And the distractions were killing that executive functioning system. It's atrophying at the expense of the distractions. So simple things, like for me, the notifications that pop up on my laptop that I have a Teams message or a new email, I shut them off. Right? You take your cell phone and turn it off and put it in a desk so that you can sit and think and focus. It's going to be a struggle. It's almost like this drug of distraction that you are drawn to go, oh, I'm going to check this message on my phone. Once you get used to setting that away, it frees you to be quietly, calmly performing at a much higher level. I think it's something that I used to experience before the age of distractions.
Just one thing with coming back to the body, it's a little bit like, I see the body like a battery. So if you have distractions and screens, everything that's taking your attention, just drains the battery.
Yeah.
And then you're not sleeping, and your battery gets lower and lower until you really start showing. So we're a battery. So get out in the sun, go for walks, replenish the battery. Otherwise it goes low and you're in trouble. You're not doing anyone any good.
But the drug of distraction, the societal pressure for you to perform, to show, to post stuff on social media, all this kind of stuff, it is putting a different narrative, around the whole entrepreneurship vibe. And we need, therefore, to address this through the panels, through building communities, to be inclusive around this subject. Marcel, what would you say about this? And you are also working.
Yeah, I love the fact we are highly inefficient. It's fact, I use this mobile phone, I use maybe 8%, it's my theory of what this device could do. And I buy every year another one. It's crazy. So we are kind of lost really in efficiency, or we are not on the level of efficiency. And I would also say, for me, the best medicine is humor or acceptance, because it makes life like a dance. Business for me was always like my art. Other paint paintings, I do business. I'm really a genius when it comes to numbers. But many times we are so focused of being the artist or being the dancer or the actor. Many of us are anyway actor all the time. But I say we could make it more relaxed, and Osho was a genius. He really inspired me a lot. Maybe some of you know Osho was an Indian guru. He said we have to step back one step, same like what Rob said in his presentation. So I rather become the dance than the dancer. I rather become the music than the musician. So it's same with meditation, by the way. I am meditation. I don't really need to meditate. So the whole life and also this, sometimes freak show outside becomes so much more enjoyable. And you're detached from all this nonsense, and really in a peaceful environment can build your startup and have more meaningful connection, because that's what really matters. We really go there as a humanity or species. We are longing for the more human connection. We are tired of this or artificial connection and transactions. We want to really go back to where we came from. Also having friends, investors as friends or colleagues. Like, why should it be different from private to business? I never really understood.
Because we created all those boundaries and all those linguistic concepts around and status divisions.
Yeah.
Tessy, what do you think?
I want to add to the previous discussion as well on happiness. There's a book that I'm reading right now, and I really, really like him as a thinker. His name is Scott Galloway. Probably a lot of people have heard from him. And he wrote a book now, The Algebra of Wealth, which I think is a good book you should give your teenage kid, but as well for all of you to really read as a professional, as an investor. I'm an investor, I have my own companies. I think it has a little bit of everything, going from mental health to how to build things. Why am I saying that when it comes to happiness? He said that, when you have a commencement speech at university by a high performance person or a very successful person, they always say, follow your passion. And Scott said that's all bullshit. Sorry for my French to say follow your passion, because he says talent is what you need to focus on and follow. Talent and mastery creates passion. And I thought that, and with that comes the happiness, because you're good at something, you work into that, and talent is quantifiable. Passion is an emotion, if you want, like that. So that was for that, which I thought it's quite controversial thinking about it. And as a philanthropist, you're kind of like wrestling around, because that is a passionate thing to do, right, when you're a philanthropist. So there's the good and the bads of this quote, but I really think it's a good way of starting thinking. So that book, check it out. I think it's really, really good. And for what Marcel was saying, just to add, I think the lack of focus is also something, you know, when you talked about the devices and everything that is happening, there's so much we can do, but so little time. And I think we need to just focus really on the tasks at hand and go a little bit back at seeing what do I really need to do and then do it properly. I see with the mentees that I have, I mentor a lot of people from all over the world, so geographics, but also how people are raised plays a big role in how you mentor someone. And one thing always comes down to it nowadays, because of devices like that and other tools that make our life easier, we also become lazier. Everything needs to be fast and now and so on. And I think the focus and to fulfill a task properly instead of doing it 2 or 3 times after again is really what I think is lacking nowadays a bit. Also for me, but what I have also seen when I invest in companies and people pitch to me, I see lack of analysis or thinking in the process because, you know, there was a lot of funding. There was a big funding pool there a few years ago, but now terms like EBITDA and so on come up, and the new startups are like, what is that? You know, kind of, because the funding pool has stopped. And yeah, so I think focus is definitely something that should be more considered.
Thanks so much. Rob, do you want to reflect on this, or Mark?
Marcel said this stepping back. Just for me, we're all the same. We're all humans. We all struggle. We have our insecurities and our negative traits. Just to clarify a word, meditation just means understanding the self, understanding yourself. So you don't have to grow a beard and wear baggy trousers to do meditation. Marcel hit on it. Meditation is all the time. It's being aware of what's going on in your internal dialogue. That shift is the most valuable thing you can do. So meditation, don't get caught up with the gurus and the spiritual speak. Meditation just means understanding the self, and that's all we're here to do, is understand ourselves. When we understand ourselves, we'll understand others better, and we'll understand why we're not focused, and we'll understand why we suffer. So if I was to leave with one thing, it'd be that. Just don't be scared by meditation. It just means shift in perspective.
I think you're now building up on this question I wanted to ask about what thoughts would you like to convey to the viewer? What do you want to implant before we finish? We have only several minutes. So the ones who are watching on YouTube, they could then rewind and listen again to what you just said. Would you like to add something to this?
No.
Okay. Mark, what about you?
I think you're addressing something that I know I deal with. We all do. This is the imposter syndrome. Like the fact that I got invited to be part of this panel discussion. I'm like, I don't belong up there. What am I going to be? What am I going to say that's going to have any value to anybody that's going to want to listen to? Right. That's what I'm thinking as I'm coming up here.
I'm only doing innovation in a multi-billion company in US. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But it doesn't. Yeah. So there's always this. Like, we're all dealing with that underlying issue. Once we realize that, then we can just kind of like relax and just connect with each other.
Maybe I can add to what Tessy said about the focus, because it's so much in the startup world. And I would add that for me it's priority, focus and priority, because priority is so crucial. For example, in healing, our healing journeys, you can't get healthy if it's priority number 10. And I was busy building my companies, MBA, etc. So I have to move health to priority number 1. And even if you have family or others, they need to step back. Priority number 1 is health. If you need fundraising, emergency fundraising, it's priority number 1. Everything else comes after. Sales is another thing. All the companies I'm involved, same problem, sales. And there is a mantra, sales fix everything. So priority is sales. Paying customers is the best validation if your product shall exist. So I feel like priorities is really, and the distraction, of course, are too high. That's why we kind of lost also the sense for what's really urgent. And sometimes it doesn't need much. It can be 1 month. My top priority is sales, 1 month.
Tessy?
Well, I think that just seeing at the diversity on this panel is amazing for me as a woman for once. I am in minority talking about mental health and the body and how we feel and emotions with 4 men. I think that's fantastic because as a mom of 3 boys, it's something that worries me constantly where, you know, on the young people, but also on us, so much is imposed on us. And, you know, high performance environments that we have addressed today, they will not get easier. And you only have one you. And as such, you know, you have deadlines and there's a lot going on. And you need to network and you need to find investors and you need to be seen to be successful and sell products and find customers and so on. It's a never-ending wheel, as Rob was talking about. So I think if I can leave you with one thing that I understood after just really grinding. I was in the military, was doing a trauma psychologist degree at the same time, was doing a graphic design at the same time, had 2 kids, and was doing a assistant teaching in the evenings as well, of all things, while being a full-time royal and doing everything else I needed to do there. And what I realized at the end of the day is that the most important thing we have is, yes, health and how we eat and everything, but also sleep. So read the book Why We Sleep, take a good nap, and recharge.
Thank you so much, Tessy. Let me wrap up on this panel in just next 30 seconds. So indeed, it's a very diverse panel. And we hear from Mark being in charge of innovation and scouting in a multi-billion corporation, about the potential, you know, imposter syndrome, all those kind of things that happens regardless of where you are in your achieving process. So, and what you perfectly, Rob, thank you so much for articulating through the hamster wheel model that we now had an hour to discuss and dive deep. And your burnouts and our cancer healing journeys, Marcel, it all happens to people. It's very important to keep your mind clear, your body clear, and be mindful and aware of what's happening, and just enjoy life. So, on this positive note, I would like to thank you very much all. Thank you.
Rob, Mark, Anton, Marcel, Tessy, thank you. Thank you very much for this very valuable discussion panel.